Welcome back to the channel. Celtic with a major come down in the Champions League. So let's talk about it. There's been plenty of discourse already from last night. We're in the studio, fresh off it, so there's going to be a lot of emotions, I feel like, in this video. There's so many places you can start, and I want to try and be as fair as possible. But I'm going to just go right into what's irritating me the most about the fallout from this game. The talk of, the financial gap between Dortmund and Celtic and this kind of stuff. And I understand that Dortmund made the Champions League final last season, so they're obviously pretty decent, and they've obviously reinvested the money they got from that very wisely. But with the players they brought in, they looked very good last night and very sharp.
Yep.
And they were very clinical. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, for me, this Celtic team have had the backing. We've made good signings. We're in really good form. And I was ahead in last night. I looked at our midfield as a very strong point. I thought Ingles, Bernardo, and McGregor could be. I actually said before we kicked off to my brother that it was the strongest midfield three we'd had for quite some time, and we looked so unorganised. The level of just unorganisation and almost amateur pressing from our team last night was just shambolic. And you look at these individuals and you go, they've been playing well. The team's been playing well. So for me, that the Bucks have got to stop with Rodgers now, and we've came on, we've given him a lot of praise. And look, you could also say, to play devil advocate for Rodgers, the players were just giving the ball away so cheaply all the time last night. Everybody, even McGregor, probably the worst performance I've seen from Cam McGregor for a long time in a Celtic shot. It was fortunate to be in the park the whole game. I thought he was really, really poor. And the problem is when McGregor plays poorly, I think the team plays poorly.
Yep.
Our captain lacked composure last night for me in the key area, the key times. But I think the most frustrating thing is just when you watch the game, the gap between our defence and midfield was a joke, man. I mean, it was ridiculous how much space the Dortmund midfield had. It was almost like they were shocked by it. Their players were like, "Why is nobody closing me down?"
No, I think they knew. I think they knew exactly what we were going to do. It looked like we looked like rabbits in the headlights, and they looked like they had completely prepared to play us. I think, like you're saying, in possession, that the first half hour, we were just so naive. Anytime Scales or Trusty get the ball, we just went so far up the park and left a massive gap. So I agree with you. Callum McGregor was not on form last night, but anytime he get the ball, he had no Celtic player anywhere near him, and he had two, sometimes three Dortmund players. I think it's really hard to cope with that. I think there was just a total naivety. Before the game, I'm the exact as you. I was like, we need to play Bernardo over Hatate, but this is why I'm not a football manager getting millions of pounds every year, because when Hatate came on, it seemed to really calm, and there was just a sort of calmness, even though we still didn't, we were still pretty shit after he came on. I felt like he was picking up the balls in the tight areas and he was able to move the ball on. In the first half, Bernardo, he just couldn't do it. I think Dortmund, just exactly what you were saying, they knew where the gaps were going to be and they went right into them, and any time they went forward they looked like they were going to score. We just looked so afraid of them after the sort of first five minutes. And I think with the first 5 minutes we were passing the ball about. I even remember one of the commentators saying Celtic have made a real positive start here. Yet again, they first three goals, a penalty, a deflection and an absolute world class goal, and it's just Celtic in Europe, isn't it? That you're just like, we're 3-1 down here. I don't even what's happened. What has happened? It's
you're just like, what has gone on here?
But on the performances, I think the midfield, I think it would be very we could single out anybody, I think, other than Scales and Maeda, who for me, the two of them actually get pass marks, which is incredible considering that we get beat 7-1. But I think we could pick out any individual that and say that they didn't have a good game. I don't think anybody had a good game, but like you're saying, we rely on Callum McGregor to be that calm head. And I think even he said it after the game. After we went 2-1 down, they turned into a bunch of individuals. We lost all shape, all composure. We couldn't string 2 or 3 passes together. And yet again, we've been embarrassed in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think you can at least respect McGregor's honesty saying that, I suppose. But, you know, you look at the way that we, like you said, we started the game and you thought we looked sharp, we looked like we were going to get right on them. And it's just that naivety of you're playing away from home. See if we were Real Madrid going to Dortmund, Real Madrid don't play that open away from home in Dortmund. You know what I mean? Like, the top teams, so there's this idea that, oh, it's because Celtic are trying to play this expansive football, but if you look at the top teams, your Real Madrids, your Bayern Munichs, your Barcelonas, they don't go to away grounds in Europe and play against a team like Dortmund, you know, or a reasonably good team in Europe and play that open. That open against anyone at that level is so criminal. Like, you're talking about how McGregor is it nobody's anywhere near him because we've got this idea that we can just push everybody forward right away, and it's like we're not playing St Johnstone here. We're away at a Champions League finalist last season.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think, like, when you hear anybody talk about a St Johnstone or anybody really, and include Rangers in that, coming to Celtic Park, what do they all say? Keep it tight for the first 15 minutes. Don't do anything stupid. But we went so gung-ho.
It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. And what worries me is that he said in his post-match interview that he's not going to change it. I mean, going away, do you think, you know, do you think Villa's going to go to Dortmund and play 3 up front?
They're just not. They're just not. They're just not.
You know?
Like this is the thing that, and it's because it's not like, that's the thing that's frustrating me about the dialogue about this game afterwards, is this idea that it's, you know, other teams would go and do that and be fine. No, they wouldn't. Villa wouldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? Top teams wouldn't go to Dortmund and do that because you don't win football games away from Europe doing that. You don't, you know, it's like that last night for Dortmund was an absolute gift. Do you know what I mean? Because we came and played the exact way that any home team in the Champions League would want you to play against them, regardless of whether it's Celtic or anyone else that's got a much bigger budget than us. People talk about the budget thing. It's like teams with bigger budgets than us wouldn't go to Dortmund and play that way. So why are we? And Rodgers comes out and he says, you know, I watched his interview and it was just infuriating where he's saying like, I've never seen a game where all of our mistakes got that punished. And I get what he's meaning, but I'm also looking at it going, PSG 7, Celtic 1. You know, Atletico Madrid 6, Celtic 0. The manager of that team was Brendan Rodgers, you know what I mean? So he has seen it before. It's happened several times under his management.
Yeah, and what's scary as well is that Kasper Schmeichel pulled off 5 or 6 decent saves. So it's not even to say that every mistake that we made get punished because we let them in. They went straight through and goal 2 or 3 times in the last 10 or 15 minutes.
7-1 flattered us, man. And that's got to be the biggest red flag of this game. It's not like 7 chances, 7 goals. It was 7-1 going on 15-1. And I don't think, honestly, I think 13-14-1 wouldn't have been harsh on us, because that was in the second half they clearly take the foot off the gas and they're still just cutting us open like butter. Do you know what I mean? Like we're so, and we talk about, but you have to talk about the tactical approach. It's just, there was a big one for me when we, you know, I think this was everybody's biggest concern with Rodgers when he came back. When he was here last time, it was clear that he was here to showcase his style of football. And this is what, you know, because modern football is very much like, football clubs want a guy that's going to play that style of play. And this idea that no matter how the game goes or how, you know, what happens in the game, this is how I'm going to play. And I really thought that going to Leicester maybe and being in a lower tier in the Premier League, having to adapt that style a wee bit, having experienced Celtic and hammered under his management in Europe against big teams away from home, that he may have came back and be a bit more pragmatic with these games. And because I think the thing that makes this one the sorest one out of all the big scalpings we've had over the past few years away from home is the fact that I feel like we have the team to put in a good performance. I'm not saying we have a team to go and beat Dortmund. I'm not saying we have a team to go to Dortmund and get a result. I'm saying we have a team to go to Dortmund that are good enough not to get beat 7-1.
Not to get embarrassed.
So that for me, if we've got a team that's good enough, it's got to come down to the manager's approach. And this guy is talking about how he's never seen it before. You've literally been here before for the exact same results in the exact same way. And it's so unacceptable. The gap between the forward line, the midfield and back four was so huge on every element of it. Like, you've got to go a 4-5-1, not a 4-3-3. Like, the midfield was getting so overrun right away.
I 100% agree. I think when I seen the lineup, I was actually quite, maybe a wee bit disappointed that Adam Ida didn't start the game, because I felt that the reason that we've brought this guy in and this style of guy in, and we've tried it with O and it didn't work. Clearly the guy, no disrespect to O, but he wasn't good enough. We had it with Giakoumakis, and I think that in these ties, like, you need an out ball. I would have 100% liked to have seen Celtic line up 4-5-1 and maybe kept it a wee bit tighter and went a wee bit more direct when we get the opportunity on the ball. And we're talking now that, you can't just change your tactics for one game. Why not? Why not?
Especially with the new format, though, as well. See, with this new format, and it being a league table, and the fact that goal difference can come into it so much more than it has in the past, you don't need to go to Dortmund and go gun-ho. Because if you had offered me a boring 0-0 last night, I would absolutely have taken it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that Dortmund team, if you were to go through the game, right, a little bit, and analyse it, so the most disappointing thing for me is obviously the penalty in a lot of ways is unfortunate the way they bounced off because they goes through. I thought Schmeichel was just kind of slow coming out. As much as he made a lot of good saves last night, he did show that he's a 38-year-old goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? At certain times where you're like, oh, that's why he's not in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he's great for us, and I'm happy that he's doing a great signing for us, but it just showed that he's not quite that level. And that's, but all of our players did, in a sense. There was a lot of naivety. After the first goal, I think we responded in such a good, positive way, and we got a goal. And that 60 seconds was amazing. But, the thing for football, see, forgetting about Rodgers for a second, just as the 11 players on the park there, just, like, you've got to be like, right, we've got away with that. Let's stay tight for 10 minutes. What are you doing? If you go back and watch them kicking off, when they kicked off,
we pressed straight away. But actually, they were a wee bit rattled because Mida almost won it for the press right away. If you go back and watch it, he almost wins it for the press right away, but it goes out for a throw-in, right? And it's almost like Celtic players are like, oh, we almost won them. We almost won that in the press. So when they go back to the keeper, we just, our midfield, a forward three and a midfield just soared forward. And one hit up the park, they're right through and go and score. And you're going, that level of naivety for those players is shocking. Yeah, and I think with a lot of the chat about how the tactics work, like, and how they translate for the dugout to on the pitch, Callum McGregor again needs to take some responsibility, because apparently it's his call when to press, when to drop back, when to keep it tight, and you want your captain to turn around to his team and go, let's calm down. Yeah, exactly. We lost an early penalty, but we've got back on terms. Yeah. It's one each. It's back to 0-0. Let's just, but like you said, as soon as they kicked off, the forward three just went straight up the park, and Bernardo and Engels also took that step out, and it just leaves the back five completely exposed. The amount of times that we ended up 3-on-2, 4-on-3
in the first 10 minutes,
in the first 15 minutes was unbelievable.
It's like, but that's not. This is the thing. It's not. I'm sorry, but this idea that it's because Dortmund are now better than us and all this kind of stuff. It's just not. It's purely down to the approach for me, because you don't see that. You see teams that are better than other teams in terms of all the time, but you don't see teams getting 3v2s that often that early on. It doesn't happen. It does not happen because teams don't do that. Like you say, pressing with the front three is bold enough. To press with the front three and two of our three midfielders is just criminal.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do that in Europe, the full team needs to come out so that you are at least very high up the park, so that your centre halves and your back four are in the halfway line, so that when the ball gets played into the channel, you can play on offside, and you're not getting let. But that wasn't what was happening, because what we were seeing was
so disjointed.
Yeah, the ball was getting dropped into the hole between the back four and the midfield, and Scales and Trusty were getting faced with like 3 or 4 Dortmund players running towards them, and they were having to turn towards their own goal. That isn't what we're wanting today. If you're going to do that type of press, the full team needs to press up the park. It's exactly like you just said. It was so disjointed. They just completely lost their shape. The amount of times that we lost the ball was unreal, and we were just passing it straight to Dortmund players was unbelievable. And then I think the most disappointing part for me was the amount of times that Dortmund just got to a second ball without being challenged. We just seemed to and it's happened to better teams than this Celtic team. Like, so I think, it's no like panic stations or anything, but the game plan just completely went out the window. As soon as we went 2-1 down, I think they just went, we're in trouble here.
Yeah.
And
completely capitulated.
Instead of trying to close up for 10 minutes, and try and we went toe to toe. We probably, last season, maybe the second best club side in the world. They got to the Champions League final, the premier competition in world football. We went, it's ridiculous. It's just, I think the word, we've said it so many times, that sums the tactics up, is just completely naive.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like you say, when you're looking at the press, you're going, the midfield's pressing, the forward three's pressing, and then you get the defensive four, the back line staying a bit deeper. And it's like, it's not, you can't do that. You either press all together or you sit back. You can't do both, because when you do both, it just gives all their creative players the space between the midfield and the back four, and they just ran an absolute mock. It doesn't. We could have had prime, Maldini and John Terry at the back last night, and they just still get pummeled because the back four were so exposed. They were so exposed.
Specifically the back two. I think even at times
crazy.
Greg Taylor left Scales very badly exposed, and Alistair Johnston left Trusty really, really badly exposed with the balls in. The one where the guy almost like cut across Trusty and got to the ball and just stuck it in the top corner. I mean, it just looked so easy. It just looked far too easy, and I think that's the thing. Like, as a Celtic supporter, do we expect to go? I mean, I think that the build-up had its same problems and some of the narratives around how well we were playing, and we went to Germany. We went to one of the hardest places on the planet, one of the big 4 leagues in the world, and for some reason felt like we were just going to go there and get a result, which I felt is always a worry, but do we expect to go there and win? No, we shouldn't. There are things that come into play, like the budgets. You get beat 1-0, you get beat 2-0. Okay, you need to give a good account of yourself. My girlfriend's no massive into football. She likes Celtic because I like Celtic, and if Celtic win, I'm in a good mood, and if Celtic get beat, I'm in a bad mood. So she wants them to win, But they kicked off last night, and as she does, she turned around and she went, "What are we hoping for?" And I was like, "Don't get embarrassed." And literally, as I said that, I was like, "Oh well, there's a penalty." Like, oh God, and there needs to be a stronger mentality. I think there must have been. I know that I did when they got that penalty. I was like, "Oh, here we go again." But the guys in the park can't think like that. They've got to be very headstrong. And again, they get back into the game and just, I mean,
you've got to have somebody.
So many mistakes were made.
Honestly, you've got to have somebody on the pitch. Forget about Rodgers' tactics. Forget about all that. See if when we go 1-0 down and we get back in it right away like that, you have to have somebody on the pitch that goes, right, forget about pressing them for a bit. we've just been caught out and we've just got away with it. Forget about what Rodgers wants. See his players in the park. Take some responsibility, man. You cannot give these guys this level of space and think it's going to be okay. It's just it's to come back like that away to Dortmund and make it 1-each that quick. If you hold that for the next 15-20 minutes, you know, it puts them under a bit of pressure. The thing about football is goal. You know, like we speak. You know, there's an element that doesn't get spoken about this a lot, which is they're all human beings, right? And confidence plays a part in this. And if you keep it at 1-each for a bit, Dortmund started to go. They've responded to this well, and we've not had a chance in a little bit of time here because we have a team that are good enough to play a low block for 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, just get in, cut the spaces out, stop acting like you're the better team. And one of the things that we spoke about with Rodgers in this channel, and I'm sure countless other Celtic channels have, is the fact that Rodgers kind of arrogance and ego, right? And I think what we've seen last night is that almost translating to the players on the pitch. This idea that Rodgers had them believing they could go to Dortmund and go toe-to-toe with this team. And I think the belief is good, right? But you need to have belief with a realistic approach. You can have belief that you can go and get a result, but you need to know how to get the result. You can't just go, we're going to go and try to play like Barcelona away to Dortmund that just got the Champions League final last season and expect to not get hammered like that. Like, when you look at the goals, the naivety, you're talking about when we were passing it in the midfield, every time we pressed them, they beat our press. Every time they pressed us, we couldn't get by them. And then not one time did any of our defenders just start to go, we need to start hitting this ball long here. Like, it's not, you need to go, as football players, do you want to get beat 7-1 in the Champions League? Hit the ball long. If you need to hit the ball long, hit it long. We were playing the ball into the midfield, and it was almost like our players are full of confidence, so it's almost like they're expecting to have 2-3 touches, but what's happening almost is we had this approach of we're going to go first touch, and you're watching the game, and all I'm thinking when I'm watching it is, can somebody just take a breath and hold the ball for more than 30 seconds here? Stop trying to play one-touch football against Dortmund in the middle of the park. They've got a better midfield than we have. They've got a better team than we have. You need to have a dose of reality of what you're up against. Like, stop trying to play one-touch football against a team that are a better football team than we are. You have to get somebody on the ball and have them just keep the ball for a few minutes. Like, the amount of times that we just kept trying to pass the ball quick and they kept intercepting it was the fact it went on for 90 minutes as well. This isn't something that changed at any point, and the fact it didn't change anything at half time in terms of our approach is just it's a big concern, because like you say, it's not panic stations. And to be clear, I didn't expect Celtic to win last night. I didn't even expect us to draw. I thought we'd lose, but there's a way you can lose in football. And when you look at the goals as well, you know, obviously the penalty, you make it 1-each, and then you press them like that. They beat the press, and obviously even the second goal was deflected and things like that. But looking at the second goal, you go with Trusty. You need to be more in that one-on-one. You need to be more physical. You cannot be letting that guy get by you like that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm reserving criticism for him as a new centre half, and obviously I think like it would be also not fair on the team to say that, to no mention that we missed Cameron Carter-Vickers badly. His organisation potentially, like, he could have
his
been
leadership
qualities to like calm things down, maybe get his foot in the ball or whatever like that. But I couldn't agree more with everything that you said. And maybe Rodgers, football's weird. It's so political that maybe behind closed doors they'll be like, right, we're gonna wait to Atalanta next. Maybe we shouldn't. You know what I mean? And as I'm saying that, I'm like, the Italians are a different kettle of fish. Maybe we should press the Italians because they play defensively, But I would like to see Adam Ida start a more physical presence, so that, because he's shown that he can play in the shoulder. I mean, his last couple of goals have been him going through and goal and scoring off the bench, but he's also, like you're saying, if somebody decides to take the bull by the horns on the pitch and start to, like, we need to just hit Adam Ida with the ball, he can take it in, he can hold up. Kyogo can do that. That's why I'm like, why did we not do that? Like, I know that Kyogo's really effective on the shoulder and getting in behind, but he's got a good touch, he's got a good pass, he can hold the ball. Why did we not, after, like, everybody could see after 15 minutes that the one touch passing, the transitions, moving a bit, it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Anytime, and I hate to say this, Engels and Kuhn just were absolutely anonymous, non-existent. I don't know if it's because they both play, or one's from Germany and the other one came for the Bundesliga. They felt a bit of pressure, their families are there. I don't know what it is, I don't know what happened, but both of them were totally anonymous, completely out of the game, and I just felt like Bernardo get caught looking a yard short, and when Hatate came on, he looked way sharper. Yeah. He looked way more composed on the ball. So don't drop your best players for your big games. And even again, like I started this by saying to you, I was wanting Bernardo to play. I wanted that midfield free, but it didn't work. It clearly didn't work.
Well, I think to try and give those players some sort of excuse, I guess, is that like Kuhn and Engels and Trusty, it's their first experience of Celtic away in Europe. That's why I'm thinking out guys like McGregor and guys like that, because they've been there before. They've been there before. They've read this script before away from home in Europe. So it's not like this is the first time this happened to McGregor in midfield in Europe. It's not like the first time this happened to Rodgers away in Europe for Celtic. It's like we keep all you heard after we get beat, scalped in Europe big time with these teams in the past is we'll aim for this, we'll aim for this, we'll aim for this. What is this manager and what have the players that have been there before learned for this? Because I'm not seeing anything different. I'm seeing because we beat St Johnstone 6-0, we think we can go to Dortmund and go toe to toe. Rodgers knew this. He knows this doesn't work. So like this idea of we tried, it's like, well, did you though? Because what is, for me, there's a real question there of what is your interest here? Is your interest here to be like, this is the way I play, I'm Brendan Rodgers, look at me? Or is your interest here to say, I've got the best interest of Celtic at heart here? Because he comes out before the game and talks about how, we're doing this for the dreams of the fans and all this birthday cat pish. But it's like you're listening to him talking, you're like, right, okay, well, if that's the case and you care about the fans and you care about Celtic, show a bit more pride, be a bit more pragmatic in the game. You can't approach it like this all the time and expect a different result. It's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And we have the quality of the players. I think Engels and Kuhn and Trusty might have all been a bit shocked last night. What happened? Because they're all like, well, we're not used to this. What's going on here? Do you know what I mean? But like, tactically, Rodgers has been there before. He knows the script. He knows that's not going to work. To not have at least, what I would have at least expected as a minimum is you could maybe try and do what you want to do initially, but after the first 15 minutes, recognise it's not working. You need to be saying to them there's got to have been a way in football where he's on the sidelines and he can put a message across. He's got to watch that first 15 minutes and go, right, we've made it 1-8 right, it's 2-1 to them now. Let's try to put a message out to them that sit back, stop pressing this team as much. Let Mida press, let Kyogo press, but see Kuhn, and let Kuhn drop back, make the midfield a bit more compact, get him to be a bit more narrow, get one of the wingers to come in a bit narrow. We so obviously needed somebody else in the midfield. Do you know what I mean? Somebody else to come back a bit deeper. We so obviously needed more help for the back four, and also the way to get Mida and Kuhn and Kyogo more involved was to get the ball up to them quicker, because any time Mida was 1-on-1, he was winning it.
Yeah, he had that. He had that right back.
Yeah, but so in midfield,
worried, you could tell.
Yeah, in midfield we're losing it all the time. So then you go to Mida and he beats the guy 1-on-1 every time, and yet we're still trying to go inside. How many throw-ins last night did you see we threw it right in the middle of the park, and you're watching it going, throw it down the line, throw it down the first thing they teach you in football at amateur level is get a throw in, throw it down the line, throw it down the line unless there's somebody wide open. But we were throwing it
into Dortmund bodies.
Yeah, there's
into 3 or 4 Dortmund players.
There was at least 5 times I remember last night. You can criticise Bernardo you won, right? But how many times did we throw the ball into him when he had 4 Dortmund players on him or something like that? 3 or 4 Dortmund players pressing him, and we just throw the ball right into him, expecting him to get out of that somehow.
Yeah, but the only thing that we can hope is that last night's a wake up call. I think, like, getting back to what you were saying about these guys are human beings. They are, and they don't play week in, week out with that type of pressure, and they don't play. Dortmund have got at least 3 or 4 other teams that come and have a go, and we don't really have that. A lot of teams sit in the low block and let us play, and a lot of these guys are not used to getting people doubling up on them. Also, the fitness levels, the intensity, everything's at a different level at Champions League. So you've got to hope that this is a wake up call for guys like Bernardo, guys like Kuhn, guys like Engels. I hope that we get back to winning ways at the weekend, and it doesn't spook the squad, and it doesn't dent confidence. And then we've got an international break to sort of reflect on this before we go out to Italy. But we can't get embarrassed like that again in Italy. It just cannot happen. I
think the gap between last night's game and the next away game is good to kind of reflect on things a little bit. And I think, like you say, there's a lot we can learn from it. Just what I would say as well, one of the points we made, we were back about the Celtic Rangers game. There was a lot made about how Rangers had more a lot of possession and good stats in that game. One of the reasons for that is because we let their back four have the ball. And we sat here on a podcast and said maybe that's because that's what we're going to try and do in Europe, where you just let the back four have the ball and cover their midfield, so that any time Rangers came into their midfield, that's when we pressed, that's when we triggered the press. So we did that against Rangers and it worked well. Last night you've got the front three pressing the back four. Why are we doing that? Let their back four have the ball. That's where you want them to have it. Cover the midfield, because we're trying to press the back four. The midfield had all the space, and in previous games, like against Rangers, we didn't do that. So I do wonder if I feel like the confidence and the media hype of how we've played, of how we've been playing, has potentially got to the heads of some of these players and the manager and how we approach that. And it is a big dose of reality of like, oh yeah, you can't do that. And I think that maybe we will see at least a more pragmatic press and better positioning with a similar approach, but just the idea of knowing that you can't do that all the time. So anyway, rants are over and big discussion there. But listen, it's
this is football, isn't it? This is why we love it.
We said it. We said in the last Champions League review that we done that we were like, we're in this really great position and it's a lot to be happy about, and we were like, oh, you're just waiting for that big moment and stuff like that. But this is what happens: is like good at, there's always something really cool in football. It never stays the same, and I think the team will, Rodgers has got to be defined publicly somehow, but I think behind closed doors he's going to know that losing 7-1 against anyone for Celtic, in my opinion, is not acceptable. And see, as a support as well, though, we need to stop giving them excuses, because I think that the team's been backed financially. We've got good players in. We've been in good form. It's not acceptable to go to Dortmund and get beat like that. You can go to Dortmund and get beat, but not 7-1.
I agree, 100%.
And any fan that's justifying it, backing themselves for that, and try to pretend that it is okay, is just music to Peter Lawler's ears. Do you know, it's music to the board's ears. That's what they want. They want you to be their cheerleaders. This is not okay. Rodgers needs to know it's not okay, and it's not acceptable for them to go to Atlanta and get beat 7 or 8-1, regardless of how many trebles he wins. It's just not okay. So it's something that I think the Celtic support need to be defiant on, and we need to actually be united in approaching the fact that Rodgers and the Celtic board and the Celtic team, that is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. But what do you think about the game? Do you disagree with anything we've said? What do you think Rodgers could have done differently? and what are your opinions on the game? Let us know in the comment section below. We've got plenty more football content on the way, as well as some more individual All About Belty podcasts from myself and guests lined up as well. So really excited about that. So stay tuned, but thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.